Hello, I'm Ayse Suberker and welcome to this special edition of Strait Talk from Kahramanmaras, the epicenter of last year's deadly earthquakes that struck southern Türkiye. Join me as I look back at that tragic day with the people who experienced it firsthand and how they are coping 1 year on. One year ago today, the area behind me was a scene of destruction. Türkiye's deadliest earthquakes in a century struck during the early hours of February 6. The tremors left deep scars on the region's landscape and psychological wounds that are only now starting to heal.
It's been described as the disaster of the century. The Turkish city of Kahramanmaras was the epicenter of two powerful earthquakes which wreaked havoc across the country's south on February 6, 2023. Rescue teams raced to save countless people trapped under the rubble of collapsed buildings, while local and international aid poured into the devastated areas. The first quake hit the Pazarcık district with a magnitude of 7.7, while the second, measuring 7.6, struck Elbistan 9 hours later. Both tremors caused significant destruction across 11 provinces, with Hatay being the worst-hit city. More than 50,000 people died, while at least 107,000 others were injured. About 14 million people have been affected. The cost of the disaster on the Turkish economy is estimated to be over $100 billion. Although Türkiye is in one of the most seismically active regions in the world, experts have described the Maraş quakes as rare, as powerful tremors don't typically occur on two separate faults close to each other in such a short period. It's the pressure of the Arabian Plate which causes ruptures and major earthquakes on the Eastern Anatolian fault line. The enormity of the earthquakes and their aftershocks can be better seen when plotted on the map. Relief efforts have been in full swing over the past year, but the country still hasn't yet completely recovered from the tragedy. As part of the rebuilding effort, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan announced the construction of 650,000 new homes in the affected areas. Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change Minister Mehmet Öztürk said nearly 7,000 homes in Hatay were to be distributed by the end of the month. The state is also planning investments in agriculture, manufacturing, education, transportation and tourism for 2024 to aid its recovery process. While cities can be rebuilt and revived, for the survivors, it's the psychological scars which will probably take a lifetime to heal. Zeynep Gökçe, Strait Talk.
Despite happening 1 year ago, the memories are still fresh for thousands of rescue workers who raced against time to save as many lives as possible. The president of the Turkish Red Crescent, Fatma Meric Yilmaz, remembers all too well the horrors of the quake and its aftermath.
I remember the very first day. It was very tough times, really. The pain was so great and all of our hearts were broken. And besides that, every individual around the country felt the same pain at the same time and tried to do their best. As Turkish Red Crescent, of course, from the first moment, when we came to this area, we are now in Kahramanmaras, we came to the area and we said some words. We said that we are going to be here with the earthquake survivors until the last survivor goes to bed with peace. So still we are here. But of course the needs change, the needs evolve by time. If you remember 1 year ago, the most important problem was shelters. In the first weeks, tents, then container cities, then now permanent houses, thanks to our capacity, I might say. thanks to our country's capacity. The first permanent houses are being distributed now. Turkish Red Crescent, according to the National Disaster Management Program, is the responsible body of food maintenance. So our priority 1 year ago and still was the maintenance of this food and nutrition program. With the help of the nutrition platform members, we have distributed more than 400 million hot meals. Then, by the time the needs change, as I said, we began to distribute food packages because the life was going to normal, the container cities were established, and the people wanted to cook their meals themselves. And after that, we moved to the cash support. Now, cash support began and continuing till now.
So the Red Crescent is known for its international relief efforts, helping in multiple disasters across the world. So how have these earthquakes impacted your operations abroad?
When we look at our organization, our team helping abroad and our team helping earthquake are different teams. And we are a very strong organization. Some part does not affect the other part. So I cannot say that we have an earthquake, so we cannot help Gaza. No, we still are in earthquake area, but we are continuing to help to Gaza. So we are doing them at the same time. But I might maybe emphasize that Turkish Red Crescent is an international humanitarian organization and is a part of International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent. This federation is the biggest humanitarian organization around the world. When we look at the capacity of federation, we see that there is 191 different national societies in different countries. We call ourselves a Red family, actually. Wherever a disaster, all of the Red community can come together and do their best to help each other. During the earthquake times, we called our federation and we said that we have a level 4 disaster, so come help us. And you cannot believe the response. They were with us, they were standing beside us, they helped us a lot in every area. And we are now in the recovery phase. We are focusing on different activities to go back to normal life, and they are still with us. So I think it's very important to help each other in these times. We are going to help the other countries, and they are going to help us, and this is going to make us stronger.
It's a great example of solidarity, I guess. So where does the Turkish Red Crescent see itself in helping rebuild the lives and hopes for future generations? Because I see a lot of children here.
We are now begin to open community service centers. These community service centers are especially built for this recovery phase. In the recovery phase, they are going to focus on the socio-economic empowerment of the community, protection services, sometimes education services, and psychological support, of course. Because from the beginning to the end, psychological support is very important, and it is going to change by time. In the first phase, it's very different. After 1 year, it is different. After 2 years, it is going to be different. But in all of the process, psychological support is going to be very important. And these social services, the community service of Turkish Red Crescent will help that to reach the community for every need for socio-economical empowerment.
Are you hopeful about the future?
I am. We have to. I think when I come to the area here, you see the children here. The eyes are brilliant.
Yes.
They are very strong. Sometimes they are stronger than us, actually. When I am in Ankara, I sometimes feel myself desperate, but whenever I come here and I see these children, so strong, so brilliant, so hopeful, smiling, yes, I am hopeful. We are going to do it together, hand in hand.
4:17 geçe uyandım ben.
I woke up at 4:17 a.m., but I cannot describe to you the way I woke up. The building was shaking up and down, up and down. I thought we'll all die. I didn't wake up my daughter. I looked at her one last time. I took her inside my arms and protected her with my body. So even if I die, I wanted her to stay alive. I lost 49 members of my family.
Kocamı kaybettim.
I lost my husband, my grandchildren, my daughter-in-law, my daughter. All of them are gone. I lost 10 people from my family. That day was like apocalypse.
Şükür idare ettik. Ne yapak ya?
Evet, yaralıydık.
I was injured and some people rescued me from under the rubble. I was trapped under there for 12 hours with my leg bent under me. I developed gangrene and had to have that leg amputated.
UMKE, Turkey's emergency responders, were the first ones on the ground that day, arriving just minutes after the quake struck. Medics like Alper Kara saw firsthand the destruction the quakes caused and its victims.
Bunu depremin bütün süreçlerini ele alırsak,
If we consider the initial period of the earthquake, that is, the first 4 or 5 days, as you know, people were found alive on the 10th and even 11th day. When you think about it, the number of people we reached is in the thousands. But we weren't the only ones in the field. Emergency response teams, the National Medical Rescue Team, the Disaster and Emergency Management Presidency, the Fire Department, the Gendarmeries, we all saved thousands of people here. There were also groups from outside Kahramanmaras. In fact, in the early hours of the earthquake, I heard that there were crews coming from Zonguldak. In fact, the Zonguldak team took my own relatives to the hospital on the first day. A team from Sivas came. Many people came from Kayseri. Groups from Mersin were here. I am talking about both UMKE teams and ambulance teams. All of them had sent all their active and on-duty teams here, probably without worrying about establishing backup squads. Otherwise, there is no explanation for this. It wouldn't have been possible to intervene so quickly.
Many survivors would eventually end up at Necip Fazil Hospital, which luckily didn't suffer major damage from the quake. The hospital became a crucial hub, with doctors from neighboring provinces coming to help treat the injured. Dr. Cebrail Öztürk, the hospital's chief physician, was working that morning when the quake struck.
Depremin olduğu gece hastane
I was working as the ER resident that night. After the quake, together with everyone we could take, we all stepped out of the hospital for our own safety. After it stopped, we went back in and checked on our patients to see their vitals and whether we could move them out of the building or not. After we finished our initial checks, patients started coming to the ER. After 20 minutes, the situation became uncontrollable for us. We started trading patients in every available corner in the hospital, including hallways. We had to use waiting rooms as triage areas. We reserved a place for patients who had passed away. We had to expand our red zone, where we would treat the most critical patients. After the flow of patients coming to the ER became impossible to overcome, we had to make additional planning on the spot, including bringing medical supplies from the pharmacy, finding extra places to tend to incoming patients, and the ones who are waiting to be transferred elsewhere. Also, it was important to evacuate the patients who were being treated before the quake struck. We carried ICU patients on upper levels to lower levels, where it was safer. With the first light of the day, we started realizing what we had been going through for the last couple of hours. We first thought that it was a local disaster. We really had no idea how big and wide the damage was around the region. When we learned about the actual situation, it was already 7-8 a.m. in the morning. I need to emphasize a point here. There were personnel who were working relentlessly and had no idea about their families' well-being through their shifts. There were some who found out members of their family had passed away. It was an intense situation indeed.
So what type of role did this hospital play in treating survivors both at the quake sites and in these facilities?
Emergency rooms responded to the first patients all around the quake zone, and the situation at hand was far beyond the capacity. After the initial responses, most patients were transferred to other facilities to make room for new arrivals. Because the number of patients were greater than the hospital's capacity all around Hatay, Kahramanmaras and Adıyaman provinces. We tried to keep as many people alive as possible, stabilized, and transferred them to nearby hospitals to continue their treatments. There's a department named Disaster Medicine, which is managed and overseen by the ER. We applied the procedures accordingly, and I appreciate and thank all my co-workers who were involved in the process.
So Türkiye first responders and medical staff were so crucial that day. They were actually the real heroes during such a dark period. How are you and your staff coping today?
At first, it was like as if we lost our connection with our emotions and didn't think twice about the situation we were in. We only tried to help the patients as fast as we could. Regardless of knowing their own families were under the rubble, everyone did their duty. After a few months, everyone started to realize what they had lost. Whether we got over it or whether we ever could, we really don't know. The only thing we are sure is that it won't be easy. It has been a year since the quake struck, and we still have good and bad days. It is not entirely honest to say that we recovered, but the truth is, life goes on. We find a way to adjust.
Hayat bir şekilde devam ediyor ve bizim buna ayak uydurmamız gerekiyor.
Already reeling from the aftermath of the COVID pandemic, surviving last year's quake brought an added burden to countless students. The trauma of having your life and education turned upside down has had a lasting impact. Kahramanmaras Sütçü İmam University played a vital role in those crucial days following the quake. The spacious campus was spared major damage. With its infrastructure intact and safe location, the university would become an aid distribution hub and a refuge for survivors. But life on campus was upended for many students.
Actually, people came here because they trusted this place due to safety reasons. You know, we had a big disaster on the 6th of February last year. And this place on the main campus, we became a shelter for the people. Most of the people were dead, actually under the rubble, you know, and the survivors came here because they trust here. This was a safe place for them, you know, and there were many trucks full of aids, you know, some good clothes, medicine, and whatever comes to your mind that the survivors needed. They just, not intentionally, but they just came here, and this place became a center for the distribution of the aids here, and the people knew that many academicians and teachers were working here as volunteers, and they trust them. And one more thing, actually, on the initial days of the earthquake, there was a power cut all over the city, but not on this campus due to huge generators. They had no power problem. That's why they preferred this place.
So how did the quake affect the life here on this very campus, and has it returned to normal after February earthquakes?
Actually, not completely, but partly, yes. We went back to normal. We are trying our best to do that. Yes, people used our lecture halls and some halls in different parts of our campus as shelters. That's why it took some time for them to be evacuated by the people. And it's just an estimation, but approximately 50,000 people were living here. Actually have been living here since the first day of the earthquake. And yeah, some of them left the campus. I mean, those people with the houses, with slightly damaged houses, they went back into their houses, and we were getting more ready for the education. Actually, we still emergency remote teaching, and our lecture halls were not available to education, so this hinders the face-to-face education to some extent. But hopefully this semester we will go back into a normal life here.
So what impact did this disaster have on students who were already reeling from the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, of course it has many negative effects on the students, because they once again had to deal with the online education. It was not so effective at all during the pandemic period. They had many problems, many psychological problems, because some of our students lost their family members, and they had to deal with their online courses during that period. They were psychologically affected in a negative manner during that term.
So what does the future hold for you and for your students?
Actually, I'm hopeful about the overall future. Actually, we are recovering from the damages caused by the earthquakes, and I strongly believe that we will come together, we will get things better all together, actually, with the help of our students, with the help of our colleagues, with our administrative staff. We are currently actually doing our best to do that. We are together on the main campus, and I hope the best for the city and people and some other people living in other cities affected by the earthquakes. So I'm hopeful, yes, everything will be better, I believe.
As many quake survivors recover from their injuries, countless others suffer in silence. The psychological impact of surviving the quake and losing loved ones has left a tremendous mental toll on those trying to move on. To get a better understanding of the long-term side effects, I spoke with a mental health expert who has directly worked with quake survivors and health workers suffering from psychological trauma.
Of course, we cannot say that it's enough time to overcome of these traumatic or psychological stressors even after 1 year, because it's known that earthquakes have created almost unimaginable psychological stressors for individuals who survived this disaster.
So what are the main psychological side effects you have witnessed on survivors?
You know that the traumatic events and experiences that the survivors have experienced, from experiencing the quakes, to losing their homes, or to seeing their homes badly damaged or destroyed and their cities flattened and emptied, to losing their loved ones, family members, friends or relatives. All of these experiences have important mental health effect on communities, and they are immense. So people who affected from the earthquake were experiencing a range of mental health issues after that traumatic event, and they were observed that especially in adults, there are symptoms like depressive symptoms, anxiety, trauma, complex trauma, loss, grief, somatic complaints, phobias, or any other symptoms that may be a focus of clinical attention. And for children especially, the symptoms that were observed regarding to behavioral problems, depression or anxiety, for example, as a symptom analysis. And somatic symptoms were mostly observed. For example, pain, especially mostly reported symptom, especially back pain or headache, and also fatigue, weakness, and shortness of breath. These somatic symptoms are mild, and there are one or multiple symptoms, and they are mostly have no any medical condition or have no clear cause.
So especially for children, how have your treatments played out? I mean, have they been effective, especially on children?
Mm-hmm. For children, especially, we are trying to establish child-friendly spaces appropriate with their needs and, of course, age sensitive. And here in child-friendly spaces, there are some intervention and some activities appropriate with age of the children and needs, and here individual or group interventions are conducted.
So treating patients with a psychological trauma can also take its toll on medical professionals like yourself. So how are you and your colleagues coping with this stress?
Of course, all of the workers exposed to the secondarily trauma, and it's also hard to cope with. Here, as an organization also, we emphasize the importance of the self-care and the staff care as well. So we conduct regularly meetings, workshops, supervision sessions to protect our staff and employees' mental health and psychosocial well-being. Earthquake survivors do or will naturally recover over time by support of family, community resources or friends. However, for those who cannot recover or continue to struggle with psychological stressors, the professional help will be beneficial, especially to getting from the mental health professionals like psychologists or counselors, because as it's known that timely and appropriate interventions help individuals to cope with their experiences and also rebuild their lives after the traumatic event.
As roads, schools and houses are rebuilt in Turkey's quake-affected regions, on the surface, life is returning to normal. Survivors who suffer severe injuries are also getting back to their daily routines. But healing the hidden wounds not visible to the naked eye will take time. Thank you for joining me on this special edition of Strait Talk from Kahramanmaras. Goodbye.